It's time for some new blood in the tight end passing game. Plus, who are the most irreplaceable Tigers on the football team this year? And some maybe surprising names that didn't make the list coming up right now on Locked On Mizzou.
You are Locked On Mizzou, your daily podcast on the Missouri Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, all you true sons and daughters, I'm John Miller, your Mizzou mafioso and the central scrutinizer of Missouri Tigers football and basketball. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you can get bonus bets every time they win in the regular season. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. And you know what I'm excited to learn more about? Some of the young guys on this Missouri roster who are going to get significant action. And I don't think there's any more interesting spot right now on the roster than the tight end position. I know the quarterback position gets all the ink, and I'm going to get to it here in just a little bit. But the fact that it seems like by all the practice reports here that have come out recently that running with the ones and twos at tight end are true freshmen Brett Norfleet and Jordan Harris. Couple guys there, 6'7", Norfleet's case from Francis Howell in O'Fallon, Missouri. Jordan Harris, another really interesting athlete at 6'4", almost 240 pounds. So frankly, just the entire Drinkwitz tenure, the tight end position in terms of the passing game has been a total non-factor. Now, Daniel Parker Jr. had some highlight blocks and certainly an interesting social media presence. Is that okay? Okay. Anyway, the less said about that, the better. But the real point is it looks like Missouri wants to actually get the ball to the tight ends this year. I know Drinkwitz has been talking. He sort of leads with the blocking when it comes to the tight ends. Not a real big surprise there. But to me, this at least says that Missouri's tight ends should at least be involved more in the passing game, because too often during the Drinkwitz tenure, they've been an afterthought. And when you watch the Tigers play offense sometimes on film, you watch the linebacker, for instance, in man coverage, or the safety who would normally be covering the tight end. Well, they can just abandon their responsibilities at times and, gum up the works and confuse the quarterback, blitz, whatever it might be, help out in a screen pass. And at the very least, you got to keep that guy at home in the passing game. And at best, attack that intermediate part of the middle of the field that too often has just been a non-factor for the Tigers. So I think that's encouraging. You know, any new blood would have been interesting to me. The fact that it's true freshmen, I got to say, I'm excited to see 87 Brett Norfleet and 86 Jordan Harris, respectively, here on the field. But again, of course, we want to see who's throwing them the football as well. And I talked a little bit yesterday about how I can't completely dismiss Jake Garcia as a possibility at quarterback this season. But we got some confirmation once again yesterday that this really does seem like a two-man race right now between Brady Cook and Sam Horn. And the good news here is no matter what side of the fence you're on in terms of Brady Cook or Sam Horn, who you're rooting for, I think it's more of a matter of both guys have improved from last year. It's not so much that Cook is falling back. It's more that Horn is catching up. And by the way, Cook is reportedly looking as good or better as he's ever looked in his career in camp as well. So at the very least, I think you've got two pretty good options at quarterback. Of course, you'd love to see one emerge and become a true difference maker here in the SEC. No duh, right? But at the same time, I think Missouri's going to be at least better at quarterback this season. And at the very least, man, that should make the offense hum a lot more too. And while obviously quarterback is the most important position on the football field, possibly the most important position in all of team sports other than NBA superstar, if that's a position, is big combo forward. A Kevin Durant, LeBron James, Giannis Antetokounmpo type, or I guess Nikola Jokic too. Just your NBA superstar. There's my argument for a position that's maybe more important than quarterback. But I digress. This is not an NBA show, is it? No, we're here to talk about Mizzou football. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I don't think I'm doing my list of most irreplaceable Tigers here. And it actually takes me quite a while before I get to one of the quarterbacks because, again, since they're kind of neck and neck by all accounts, well, if you lose one, I don't think it's as devastating as it would be to, say, lose the top two guys on my irreplaceable list. Number one, Chris Abrams-Drain, and number two, Ennis Rakestraw. Yeah, I'm kind of making a statement here. I really think that, as I've said all along, for as much as we all love Darius Robinson and Tyron Hopper, for instance, I really, really believe those are the two most important guys on this Missouri defense. It's what made Missouri as good as it was defensively last season. And by the way, in the one game where the Tigers truly, truly got burnt defensively against Tennessee, well, it wasn't those guys' fault. It wasn't their fault on the outside. And by the way, I think Rakestraw is pretty darn close to Abrams-Drain too, but I'll certainly give Chris the advantage just based on, man, some absolutely ridiculous numbers that he put up last year. I don't think he missed a tackle last year. His QBR against him was something like 14.6. So he's basically a drunk. Everybody's a drunk Ryan Leaf when Chris Abrams-Drain is covering your pass, something like that. So to me, I think it's pretty obvious that those are the two most important guys on the roster. But then at 3 and 4, I'm going to cluster a couple of the guys at the same position here again. I'm going to go Javon Foster here at 3. He's just an absolute pillar as your left tackle, as the blindside blocker. Oh, no, not the Michael Orr story. Sorry, I didn't mean to. But for Javon Foster, he is the perfect guy for your right-handed quarterback to have him not really worry about his back. What a luxury. And fortunately, I think we're going to be a lot better at right tackle this year too, because number 4 is Armand Mimbu, believe it or not, because that guy is getting some NFL hype. And again, I've never sat here and acted like, hey, I'm the best evaluator of offensive line play in the world. I have a lot of strengths as a football analyst. That isn't one of them, but I do know how important offensive line play is. That couldn't have been more apparent after the 2022 Missouri season. And if Mimbu goes down, I just don't think there's really anybody else to replace the kid from Lee Summit. I really don't. And coming up, of course, I got to talk more about the most irreplaceable players on the Missouri football roster for 2023, including, well, Luther Burden, of course, Tyron Hopper, and more. But first, I got to tell you about FanDuel Sportsbook, because football season, as you know, it's about to kick off, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to win all season long, because right now when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you can get bonus bets every time they win in the regular season. So you don't just have to cash in your Super Bowl ticket. Yes, again, bonus bets every time your team wins. And you can use your bonus bets on spreads, player props, easy for me to say, over-unders, and more, like even college football futures like Luther Burden to win the Heisman at 400-1. Please don't bet on that, by the way. But you can visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Thanks once again for making Locked On Mizzou your first listen every day. And for you everydayers, tomorrow on the show, cornerback from Alabama, Drake Kirkpatrick Jr. is going to make his commitment known. So we're going to talk about that and more right here on Locked On Mizzou. But right now I want to finish out my top 10 of the most irreplaceable Missouri football players for this season. The 5th guy I have on my list is Luther Burden. Him moving into the slot, I think we're going to truly see Luther Burden's star shine this year. I think this is his breakout campaign. I really do. I don't have any huge predictions on statistics or anything like that. I just think this is the year that Luther really shows what a special talent that he is. Number 6 on my list is Tyron Hopper, the former Florida Gator. Why do I even need to say that? He's a Missouri Tiger at this point. Year 2, that's good enough for me. And in all seriousness, it does make a difference, right? Just to have these guys back for a year. I was just even thinking about that with the basketball team the other day. It's like, oh, I feel like I know Nick Honor and Sean East now, for instance. But anyway, back to football, of course. Hopper, just an incredibly important player, and I'm honestly tempted to put Chad Bailey right behind him because while I think there are some talent there at linebacker, it's definitely unproven talent behind those two young men. But I think I'll just put Hopper there for now and go with Darius Robinson after him. I'm definitely on team, hey, let's keep Darius at the 3 technique inside at defensive tackle for most of the season. Hey, situationally, if they're going to put him outside, I'm fine with that. I have no argument against that. I just think the idea of moving a productive player who has a chance to be a pro out of his natural position full time would be silly. It doesn't sound like Missouri's doing that, but that did make me a little nervous during the offseason, I'll be honest. But one of the reasons Missouri considered that is, well, among other players, Christian Williams. And there are a lot of good players on the inside, including Darius Robinson. But again, Christian Williams, I think he's got a chance to be a pro. I really do. And pros are hard to replace. Speaking of another guy who's got a chance to be a pro, this is becoming a little bit of a theme here. There may be more potential NFL players on this roster than I think more people realize. I'm not saying they're all going to get drafted this coming year, but like Dalen Carnell, he could be a future pro, but since he's only a true sophomore, he's not going to be eligible, right? And I just said there because I'm going, wait, is he a redshirt sophomore or is he a true sophomore? Can I find this out really quickly? What is his jersey number? 13, right? Yep. Okay. He's a true sophomore. I was correct. Why did I even question myself? I'm always correct. But in all seriousness, Carnell, I expect him to have a massive year for the Tigers. I really do. I think going, as good as Martez Manuel was, as good as he was as a tackler, a blitzer in the run game, I think Carnell's just a higher level player in coverage. And I think he's going to make the Missouri pass defense all that much more difficult to play. And rounding out that top 10, you know what? I am going to go with Chad Bailey because he's really the guy I'm already most concerned about injury-wise because Bailey has really, really struggled with injuries over his career. A good player, no doubt about that. But, boy, if we could just get 10 or 11 games out of Chad, I don't even need 12. Just give me 10, Chad, and that'd be a heck of a win, I think. But how about the guys who didn't make the list? I don't think I really need to explain my quarterback position again, but maybe the most notable guy who didn't make the top 10 is Harrison Mevis, right? A guy who obviously was one of the top kickers in the country his first 2 seasons at Missouri. Had a little bit of an off season last year, certainly by his standards. Don't need to relive the Auburn game for the millionth time. But really the reason I left Mevis off the list, because it is important for him to bounce back for the Tigers this year. That would certainly be a plus. But I don't think it's as important as those other guys I just mentioned because, well, we're hearing good things about true freshman Blake Craig, the backup kicker, the freshman from Liberty North in the Kansas City area. It sounds like he's pretty darn good too. So Missouri should be fine if something were to happen to Mevis, or maybe he just happens to have a bad year or something like that. I would bet on Mevis having a bounce back year. I really would. I think he'll be closer to his All-American form than whatever his form was last season. But again, just to have Blake Craig there, we're talking about irreplaceable guys. Well, I just don't think Mevis is as irreplaceable maybe as he would be in the past. Similarly, Jalen, a.k.a. J.C. Carlisle, another true freshman behind him, Marvin Burks, or perhaps a redshirt freshman. I'm not going to look this one up. But Marvin Burks, guy from Cardinal Ritter, looks poised to contribute this season. So Missouri just in general looks pretty deep at safety right now. So, as good as Carlisle has been for the most part for the Tigers, I don't think he's as irreplaceable as, again, the 10 guys I named before him. And quickly, just to round out three positions that I think are sort of tough to suss out in terms of, well, is this guy irreplaceable? Who is even the best of all of them? Take the running back position, for instance. It seems like Cody Schrader is going to run with the ones, at least to start the season. But I really think Nathaniel Pete, the former Rockbridge product, I think he's going to have a nice bounce back season. And I think Jamal Roberts, the freshman, or even Tavoris Jones would probably be just fine too if it came to that. And when it comes to the edge of the Missouri front seven, I think it's hard to separate the defensive ends right now, and also the outside of the Missouri offense as well. The boundary receivers, whether it's Theo Weiss, Peanut Houston, Mekhi Miller, who a lot of us have high hopes for. I just think it's kind of hard to separate those guys out at this point. But you know what? I'll tell you what, Annor Boateng, the Little Rock product. Let's talk a little basketball here. And what does it say about Dennis Gates in this program that we're still in it on this race? Well, let's talk about that right after these quick words. Well, how about another fun future cast from Rivals.com, Missouri fans? Well, I got it for you. Annor Boateng, the 6'5", 200-pound shooting guard from Little Rock, Arkansas. Well, Rob Cassidy just predicted that he's going to Missouri, and Rob Cassidy, a national basketball analyst for Rivals, not a Mizzou guy as far as I can tell, so don't worry, no homerism here can be accused, but it's pretty interesting. He also had Marcus Allen to Missouri correctly. You know what? For this 2024 class, his most recent future cast, he actually got wrong with a kid who ended up going to Kansas, of all places, ironically enough, or I guess interestingly enough. But you just scroll down here in his predictions, all the ones that have come to fruition so far, I mean, he's got nearly 19 or 20 of them right, if I'm counting here really quickly. Again, that's the one he's gotten wrong this year. So this guy seems pretty darn locked in, especially for this 2024 class. And again, he had the Marcus Allen prediction right a few days before it happened. So not a guy who necessarily goes all the way out on a limb. And frankly, regardless, obviously Missouri is in on it here. Maybe Eric Musselman and the Razorbacks will ultimately close for the in-state kid, but that's kind of the point. When Arkansas is this good, and let's make no mistake about it, Arkansas has been really, really good under Eric Musselman. You can hate the shirtless wonder all you want. I don't blame you for not loving Eric Musselman. Not my favorite coach in the world either. I hear you. But you got to respect what he can do for a program. You got to respect his eye for talent, his ability to close on talent, all that good stuff. But my goodness, if Missouri could actually get this kid who's a borderline, top 20 type kid, a possible McDonald's All-American, you never know. I mean, that would be an unbelievable coup for Missouri, and that would put it in possibly a top 5 type of class, at the end of the year. So what does that tell us? That tells us that Dennis Gates is absolutely crushing it. I know this has been a theme that I've been going on with for a while. Hey, I like Dennis Gates. Hot take, I know, but it's fun to say, and I think you like hearing it as well. And I hope you've enjoyed hearing this podcast today. Hope you enjoy. Well, actually, I should say, please tell a friend, as I say it a little bit better. Getting discombobulated here. I'm running out of oxygen or something here in the studio. I don't know. But seriously, thanks. What I'm trying to say is thanks for listening and thanks for telling a friend. We are available on YouTube, Spotify, the SiriusXM app, Apple Podcasts, the whole deal. So until next time, I am John Miller. And once again, for your everydayers, we'll talk about Dre Kirkpatrick tomorrow right here on Locked On Mizzou.